The clock on the daycare wall ticked toward 5 p.m., that familiar hour when the day began to wind down and tired parents filtered in one by one to collect their children. The halls of Little Sprouts Daycare buzzed with the usual late afternoon energy, children finishing up snacks, coloring pages half done, and the hum of cartoons playing faintly in the background. Megan, a lead caregiver with 6 years of experience under her belt, stood at the front desk checking the daily logbook when the door chimed softly. A man stepped in, dressed plainly, dark jeans, a navy windbreaker zipped halfway, and a faded baseball cap pulled low over his face. Megan didn't recognize him, but that wasn't too unusual. Occasionally, an uncle or a neighbor picked up for busy parents. He moved toward the clipboard with quick, quiet purpose and scribbled a name onto the pickup log. "I'm here for Lily," he said, not making eye contact. Megan paused. "Lily Thompson." He nodded without looking up. "Yeah, her dad." The man's voice was flat, expression unreadable beneath the cap's shadow. Megan glanced toward the playroom where Lily, a bubbly 4-year-old with pigtails and a rainbow backpack, sat cross-legged, stacking blocks with another child. Megan motioned for her to come over, and Lily obediently stood, but something about her face made Megan pause. As Lily approached the man, she slowed, her steps hesitant. Instead of the usual rush into a parent's arms, she stood at a slight distance. Her eyes darted toward Megan, lips parting slightly like she was about to speak, but didn't. The man reached out his hand. "Come on, sweetheart. Let's go," he said softly. Lily looked up at him, confused. "Mommy said she'd come. She asked me to pick you up today," he replied quickly. "She got stuck at work." Megan's hand hovered over the sign-out log. Lily still didn't move. "Did your mom tell you someone new was coming today?" Megan asked gently. Lily glanced up at her, then down at her shoes, giving the faintest shake of her head. Megan's gut tightened. Something wasn't right. In her years working with children, she'd learned to trust that inner voice, the one that whispered when something was off. And right now, it was screaming. She forced a calm smile and looked at the man. "Could I just see an ID real quick? Just to update our records." The man hesitated, just for a moment, but in that moment, Megan noticed his jaw clench slightly. His hand twitched, then slid into his jacket pocket, fumbling. "I left my wallet in the car," he muttered. Megan nodded, trying to hide the rising alarm inside her. "No problem. You can go grab it. I'll stay with Lily until you're back." He gave a tight nod and stepped toward the door, but instead of walking to a vehicle, Megan saw him pause at the edge of the parking lot and look around, like he was unsure where he'd even parked. Her instincts flared. She turned to her coworker and whispered, "Call the police." Then she grabbed her keys and quietly followed him outside. Megan stayed low in her car, her hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles turned pale. The engine was off. She didn't want him to hear it or suspect he was being followed. She watched through the windshield as the man guided Lily by the hand toward a black sedan parked at the far end of the daycare lot. The child walked stiffly, glancing over her shoulder twice. Megan caught her gaze briefly, just a flicker of fear in those big brown eyes, and that was enough. He opened the back door and gently placed Lily into the car seat, as if rehearsed, as if this was a normal routine. But Megan noticed, the car seat didn't fit her properly. It wasn't even buckled right. A father would know how to do that. The man glanced around once more before shutting the door and walking around to the driver's side. Megan's heart pounded as she watched the sedan roll slowly out of the parking lot. Her own car jolted slightly as she started it up and pulled into traffic a few seconds behind him, trying to stay 2 vehicles back. She couldn't let him see her. Her mind raced. Who was this man? Why hadn't Lily recognized him? She was a bright child, affectionate and confident. And she'd never once mentioned anything about her father picking her up. The emergency contacts for Lily listed only her mother and grandmother. No father. No mention of one at all. The sedan took an unexpected left turn, away from the main road and into a quieter residential area. Megan's stomach dropped. This wasn't the route to Lily's house. She knew where Lily lived, less than 10 minutes in the other direction. Megan followed cautiously, keeping her distance. The streets here were less familiar, more industrial, filled with closed shops and lots with rusted fences. The further they went, the more certain Megan became, this wasn't a detour. This was deliberate. She fumbled with her phone, dialing the police non-emergency number. Her voice shook as she gave the dispatcher the license plate number and direction of travel. "I think a child has just been abducted," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I work at a daycare, and this man picked up one of our girls. Something's wrong. The child didn't recognize him." The dispatcher responded calmly, asking for more information. Megan gave everything she could while still driving, eyes locked on the car ahead. The man turned again, this time into a cracked, weed-covered road that led to an old warehouse district at the edge of town. "No, no, no," Megan whispered, pulse racing. There were no houses out here. No businesses. Just aging metal buildings with boarded windows and broken lights. The sedan slowed in front of a gray structure with graffiti on the side and a collapsed loading dock. Megan parked a few spaces behind, ducking low. Her heart thudded against her ribs as she saw the man get out and walk around to the back door, opening it for Lily. The girl hesitated, but he reached in and took her arm gently, coaxing her out. Megan clenched her jaw. This wasn't right. Nothing about this was okay. Her instincts hadn't just been right, they may have just saved this little girl from vanishing forever. Now she had a choice: wait for the police, or act before it was too late. Megan crouched lower in the driver's seat, her breath fogging the windshield. Her car was parked a discreet distance away, hidden behind a rusted dumpster near the side of the warehouse. The building ahead looked abandoned, windows boarded up, the once white paint now a dull gray, peeling in long strips from the walls. A crooked, "No trespassing" sign swung loosely from a chain-link fence that surrounded the lot. The only sound was the low chirp of birds and the occasional groan of metal in the wind. She stared at the man as he opened the back door of the car. He moved slowly, deliberately. Lily sat motionless inside, stiff like a statue. Megan's heart twisted as she watched the little girl inch away from him, her small body pressed tightly against the door. The man leaned in, whispered something, then reached out to grab her hand. Lily recoiled slightly, but he caught her wrist gently, not aggressively, but with the kind of quiet force that said resistance wasn't an option. Megan wanted to scream. Her fingers hovered over her phone again, but she knew the police wouldn't arrive for another few minutes. Maybe more. And in that time, anything could happen. The man closed the car door and looked around. Megan ducked instinctively. When she peeked back up, he was leading Lily toward the warehouse's side entrance. It was a dented metal door with chipped red paint, slightly ajar. As he pulled it open, a deep blackness yawned from inside, dark, quiet, and utterly wrong. Something primal surged inside Megan. A protective instinct. She couldn't just sit there and watch this man pull a child into what could be her final destination. She grabbed her phone, hit record, and began narrating quickly, quietly. "This is Megan Langley, caregiver at Little Sprouts Daycare. It's 5:37 p.m. A man claiming to be Lily Thompson's father picked her up. We checked, he's not on her emergency list. He just brought her to an abandoned warehouse at 42nd and Fallow Street. I'm watching from across the lot. He's trying to take her inside." Lily looked scared. This may be an abduction. Police have been called. She ended the recording and sent it to her backup drive and email automatically, just in case. Then she got out of the car. Her legs shook as she crept forward, staying close to the side of a low cement wall. She couldn't let him go in with her. She was sure, absolutely sure, that if he got her inside, she might never come out again. Lily was a bright little girl with a laugh that could light up a room. The thought of her smile being extinguished in that dark, cold place made Megan's vision blur with tears. As she rounded the corner, she could see them both more clearly. The man had one hand on the warehouse door and the other gripping Lily's shoulder. The girl's eyes were wide, her small mouth trembling. "Hey!" Megan shouted, louder than she intended. The man froze, his head snapping toward her. For the first time, Megan saw his face clearly, unshaven, pale, with a faint scar beneath his right eye. His expression shifted instantly, from confusion, to recognition, to fury. And then, fear. "What are you doing with her?" Megan demanded, stepping forward with her phone raised. "She doesn't know you." He opened his mouth, then closed it. For a brief moment, his grip on Lily's shoulder tightened, but then he let go. I was just," he began, voice faltering. But Megan wasn't listening. She rushed toward Lily, wrapping an arm around her protectively. "She's not going anywhere with you," she said. "The police are on their way." The man backed away slowly, his eyes darting left and right. Then, without another word, he turned and ran, disappearing behind the warehouse, his footsteps echoing off the cracked pavement. Megan clutched Lily tightly, heart pounding in her ears, trying to steady her breath as she whispered, "It's okay, sweetheart. You're safe now. I've got you." Megan held Lily close, the little girl's small hands wrapped tightly around her neck, her cheek pressed against Megan's shoulder. The child was trembling, not crying, but caught in that deep kind of shock that no 4-year-old should ever know. Megan's own heart thundered in her chest as she looked over her shoulder, scanning the alley behind the warehouse. The man had vanished. Just like that. Gone into the maze of backstreets and shadows. She walked quickly back toward her car, her free hand gripping her phone. Her fingers fumbled as she redialed the dispatcher, struggling to keep her voice steady. "It's Megan Langley again. I confronted the suspect. He fled on foot behind the building. I have the child with me. She's okay, just shaken. We're at the side lot of the old freight warehouse on Fallow Street." The dispatcher remained calm, assuring her that officers were en route and less than 2 minutes away. Megan ended the call and climbed into the back seat with Lily, pulling the door shut behind them. The child didn't speak, but she didn't let go either. Megan wrapped her arms around her protectively and rocked slightly, whispering soothing words she barely heard. Herself. Then, in a barely audible voice, Lily finally spoke. "He said he was my new daddy." Megan froze, blinking back tears. "Your new daddy?" Lily nodded slowly. "He said Mommy told him to come. But I didn't remember him. I never saw him before." A chill swept through Megan. She knew what that meant. This wasn't some bitter custody battle gone wrong. This man was a complete stranger. He had told a 4-year-old girl a story just convincing enough to make her hesitate. And if Megan hadn't acted on instinct, he might have driven away with her. Disappeared. And no one would have known until it was far too late. Lily lifted her head, her eyes round and frightened. Was he going to take me forever? Megan swallowed hard. "No, sweetheart. He's not taking you anywhere. Not now. Not ever. You're safe." They sat in silence, listening for sirens. Then, finally, the distant wail of approaching police vehicles cut through the stillness of the industrial park. Megan opened the car door just as 2 patrol cars turned into the lot, lights flashing but no sirens now, just the heavy, purposeful sound of doors opening and boots on concrete. Officers approached carefully. Megan stood, holding Lily's hand, and began to explain everything. Her voice was calmer now, fueled by adrenaline and clarity. She walked them through the entire timeline, from the moment the man signed out Lily to the second he ran off into the shadows. One officer gently took Lily aside to speak with her while another stayed with Megan, writing detailed notes and nodding with each account. When Megan showed him the video recording on her phone, his face hardened. "You did exactly the right thing," he said. "And you may have just saved this little girl's life." Lily's real mother arrived within minutes, racing across the lot in tears. The moment she saw her daughter, she dropped to her knees, sobbing as she pulled her into her arms. Lily cried then too, overwhelmed and relieved. Megan stepped back, letting the reunion unfold, her hands shaking now that the danger had passed. The officers fanned out, canvassing the area, and within the hour, a full investigation was underway. They recovered security footage from nearby buildings, a better look at the suspect's vehicle, and clearer images of the man's face from Megan's video. What they didn't find was him. But what they had now was something much stronger than a lead. They had evidence, a witness, and most importantly, a child safe and sound. Megan stood in the fading light of evening, watching the sun dip behind the crumbling buildings. She didn't consider herself a hero. She was just someone who'd listened to a feeling she couldn't explain. One gut instinct had made the difference between a child lost and a child found. Megan stood off to the side as the paramedics gently checked Lily for injuries. She watched with tired eyes, the weight of the last hour crashing down on her in waves. Her legs still felt like jelly, her mouth dry, and her pulse hadn't completely slowed. The truth was, she didn't feel heroic at all. She felt rattled, hollowed out by what almost happened. The image of Lily, so small and helpless, nearly vanishing into that warehouse burned in her memory like a brand. Detective Harris, a no-nonsense woman with a calm demeanor, approached Megan with a clipboard in hand. She was the lead on the case and had already seen Megan's video several times. "We just got confirmation from Lily's mother," she said quietly. "She never gave permission for anyone to pick up her daughter. The man in your video isn't a family member. He's not even an acquaintance. As of now, we're treating this as an attempted abduction by an unknown individual." Megan nodded numbly, her fingers still clutching her phone. "I knew something was wrong the second I saw him. It just didn't feel right." Lily didn't run to him. She looked scared. And that's not like her. "That instinct probably saved her," the detective said sincerely. "You did more than most would. You followed. You confronted him. You recorded everything. That's incredibly brave." But Megan didn't feel brave. She felt angry. Furious, even. Someone had walked into her daycare, a place meant to be safe, protected, and tried to take a child right from under their noses. He had the audacity to sign her out, to lie to her face, and to look down at a little girl with false warmth and steal her trust. Megan's hands clenched at her sides. The officers finished collecting evidence from the scene, photos of the car's tire marks, fingerprints from the door handle of the warehouse, and footage from a nearby security camera that had caught part of the suspect's escape route. Still, he remained at large. But now they had a face. And soon, a name. Megan turned as Lily's mother, Catherine, approached her, still holding her daughter tightly. Tears streaked down her cheeks as she looked at Megan, speechless at first, then pulled her into a trembling hug. "You saved her," Catherine whispered. "You didn't just notice, you did something. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't." Megan swallowed hard, blinking rapidly. "I'm just glad she's okay." But deep down, she knew things wouldn't go back to normal right away. Not for Lily, not for the daycare, and certainly not for herself. There would be new protocols, new fears, and new conversations. The illusion that something like this could never happen here was shattered. And it wasn't just a warning, it was a wake-up call. As the officers began to wrap up their investigation for the evening, Detective Harris approached one last time with a serious expression. "We've put out a bulletin for the man based on your footage. We're confident we'll find him soon. He's not going to get far." Megan nodded but said nothing. She stood there in the fading light, watching as Lily clung to her mother and was finally taken home. Safe, alive, unharmed, but forever changed. And so was Megan. She took one last look at the warehouse, the door swinging loosely in the breeze, and let herself imagine the terrifying possibility of what might have happened. But she didn't dwell in it. She got in her car, sat in silence for a moment, then turned the key in the ignition. Because tomorrow, there would be more children. More pickups. More families trusting her to protect their little ones. And Megan, now more than ever, would be ready. Later that night, Megan sat alone at her kitchen table, a mug of untouched tea growing cold between her hands. The hum of the refrigerator was the only sound in the quiet apartment, though her mind buzzed louder than any noise ever could. Her body still felt the adrenaline, wired, jittery, as if at any moment someone might knock at the door and upend her entire world again. Sleep felt impossibly far away. She kept replaying it all in her head. The man's face, the stiffness in Lily's posture, the moment she shouted at him to stop. 100 small decisions, each one teetering on instinct, had somehow added up to something enormous. She didn't feel like a hero, but the truth was, if she hadn't trusted that gut feeling, things could have ended in tragedy. Her phone buzzed with a new notification, a message from Catherine, Lily's mom. "She's asleep now. Finally. I had to lay with her until she drifted off. She kept asking if the bad man would come back. I told her no. I told her Megan made sure he can't. Thank you again. I don't know how to repay you." Megan stared at the screen, her throat tightening. She didn't need thanks. What she wanted, desperately, was a world where a child didn't need saving in the first place. Where no parent had to explain to their daughter why a stranger had tried to take her away. Another buzz came in, this time from Detective Harris. "We ran a facial recognition match on the suspect using your video. We're close. He's got a record, prior arrests for stalking and attempted child luring, but never convicted. His last known residence is 2 towns over. We've got plainclothes officers watching the property. We'll update you when we have more." Megan's jaw clenched. The idea that this man had done something like this before, and gotten away with it, filled her with rage. How many chances had he had to disappear a child? How many times had he slipped through the cracks? She opened her laptop, the screen glowing pale blue in the dark kitchen. She couldn't sleep, not yet. So she started typing an email to the daycare's director, outlining everything she'd witnessed, along with a set of changes she believed were now absolutely necessary. Mandatory photo ID checks at pickup. Immediate verification with primary guardians. Emergency code words for children. Training for staff on how to spot behavioral red flags. Surveillance review protocols. A hotline for suspicious activity. She hit send and sat back. It wasn't enough, not by itself. But it was a start. A soft knock at her door startled her. Her spine went rigid, breath caught in her chest. But when she peeked through the peephole, it was her neighbor, Mrs. Bell, holding a small casserole dish. Megan opened the door slowly. "I saw the news online, Mrs. Bell said softly. "Didn't say your name, but I knew it was you. Just wanted to drop this off. Thought you might not feel like cooking tonight." Megan smiled weakly. "Thank you. That's really kind of you." Mrs. Bell touched her arm. "You did something good today, sweetheart. I hope you know that." Megan nodded but didn't trust herself to speak. After her neighbor left, she sat back down at the table. Now with food in front of her she still didn't feel like eating. But she realized something as she looked at the casserole, the email, the messages on her phone. Today hadn't been just about saving Lily. It had also awakened something in her, a deep, urgent sense of responsibility. She couldn't go back to life as usual. Not when she now knew how fragile a child's safety could be. So she sat there, in the quiet of her kitchen, not as a hero, not as a victim, but as a protector who had seen the cracks in the system, and was ready to do something about them. By morning, the story had already begun to spread. Megan didn't know how it had leaked. Maybe a police scanner, maybe one of the other staff members from the daycare who'd gotten wind of what had happened. But now, it was out. Her phone buzzed constantly with calls, texts, and social media pings, and every notification felt like a jolt to her nerves. She wasn't looking for attention, yet suddenly she was the face of something much bigger than a daycare pickup gone wrong. By 8 a.m., reporters were gathered outside Little Sprouts Daycare, cameras poised like weapons, ready to capture sound bites and headlines. Megan wasn't there yet. She sat in her car 2 blocks away, gripping the steering wheel with white knuckles, staring blankly through the windshield. She hadn't even changed out of the same hoodie she'd worn the night before. Her mind wrestled with the idea of going in. She'd saved a child, yes, but now she'd become a story. Her phone buzzed again. A text from Detective Harris. "We found him." That stopped her heart for a second. She opened the message and read on. Suspect's name is Roy Hensley. 47. He'd been squatting in a foreclosed house on 88th Street. Officers moved in at 6 a.m. He tried to run, but he's in custody now. We're preparing formal charges: attempted abduction, trespassing, and impersonating a guardian. You'll likely be asked to testify later. We'll keep you in the loop. Megan exhaled, a long breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding since the moment the man ran from the warehouse. He's caught. It felt surreal. The monster who had smiled politely and signed a clipboard, who had coaxed Lily into a stranger's car and tried to lead her into darkness, was behind bars now. She finally pulled into the daycare's parking lot. It was strange to walk through the doors as staff and parents stared at her like she was someone new. Not just the soft-spoken caregiver they'd trusted with their toddlers, but something else, a barrier that had stood between innocence and evil. Inside the staff room, her coworkers hugged her. The director, Mrs. Pennington, had tears in her eyes as she clasped Megan's hands. "I don't even have words. You saw something none of us did. You acted when others might have hesitated. Because of you, Lily's home. You saved her." Megan gave a quiet smile, but she didn't feel victorious. Not yet. Later, as parents arrived to drop off their kids, Megan noticed something new, an undercurrent of caution in every interaction. One father hesitated before handing off his daughter, checking twice that the staff had his updated contact info. A mother clutched her son's hand a moment longer than usual before letting go. Megan couldn't blame them. The illusion of safety had been pierced, and everyone was waking up. Mid-morning, a local news crew was granted permission to film a short segment from across the street. Megan didn't speak to them. She didn't want her face plastered everywhere. But the story had taken on a life of its own. Online forums debated the state of child safety. Parenting blogs shared tips on pickup protocols. A trending hashtag began to circulate, #TrustYourGut, with Meghan's story at its center. But none of that mattered to her as much as what happened around noon. Catherine returned to the daycare, not to drop Lily off, but to bring her by. She'd insisted. Lily was still quiet, subdued, her usual bubbly energy dimmed by the weight of what had happened. But when she saw Meghan across the room, her face lit up, just a little. She let go of her mother's hand and ran into Meghan's arms. "You're my superhero," Lily whispered, her voice soft but sincere. Meghan hugged her tightly, blinking back sudden tears. "No, sweetie. You were the brave one." They stood like that for a moment, two lives forever changed, bonded by a day that could have gone very differently. The world was watching now, yes, but in that small moment, Meghan knew she'd done something that mattered. Not for fame, not for recognition, but because she'd listened to something quiet and powerful inside herself, and followed it without question. Weeks passed, but the memory of that day never truly faded. Though the news cycle had moved on and the cameras were gone, Meghan's life remained changed. The daycare had implemented all of her suggested security protocols, and more. Every pickup now required a biometric check-in. A new security camera system had been installed, with screens mounted in the office and live feeds accessible only by administrators. It was a safer place, yes, but the innocence was gone. The soft bubble of trust that once surrounded their daily routines had burst. Meghan had been back to work for 3 weeks. She moved through her tasks with quiet precision, feeding toddlers, supervising nap time, reading storybooks, but her eyes were always scanning, her ears tuned to even the subtlest disturbance. Every unfamiliar face near the fence, every car idling too long in the lot, pulled her attention like a magnet. She no longer assumed good intentions. She no longer gave the benefit of the doubt. She'd learned that evil doesn't come cloaked in shadows, it often wears a smile. One crisp morning, Detective Harris stopped by the daycare. Meghan saw her from the window and stepped outside to meet her before she could even ring the bell. Harris greeted her with a small smile, her expression lighter than it had been during their last meeting. "I wanted you to hear it from me," she said, holding a folder. "Roy Hensley was formally indicted yesterday. Grand jury reviewed the evidence, your video, his background, witness testimony. He's going to trial. And with the charges we've stacked, we're confident he won't be walking free anytime soon." Meghan exhaled slowly. "Good. He doesn't deserve another chance." Harris nodded. "He's off the streets. But what you did, your actions, it's starting to ripple. We've reopened 2 cold cases with similar MOs. Your video brought attention to his pattern. We might be able to link him to other attempted abductions we thought were isolated." Meghan absorbed that in silence. The idea that her gut instinct might lead to justice for more families brought both satisfaction and a deeper sorrow. How many children had come close to danger? How many hadn't been as lucky as Lily? "I'm not brave," Meghan said quietly. "I just knew something felt wrong." "That's what bravery looks like," Harris replied. "Not capes and cameras. Just someone refusing to stay silent when they feel something's off." After the detective left, Meghan walked to the play yard where Lily and a group of kids were building towers with giant foam blocks. Lily looked up, spotted her, and beamed. She ran over and tugged at Meghan's hand. "Miss Meghan, come play." Meghan knelt beside her, brushing a lock of hair from Lily's face. "I'd love to." The two of them spent the next 20 minutes building a wobbly castle that fell at least a dozen times, only to be rebuilt again. Each collapse brought a fit of laughter, and each rebuild brought teamwork and persistence. It was simple, ordinary, and that's what made it beautiful. But behind Meghan's smile was a quiet resolve, one she carried now like armor. Because she understood the world a little differently than she had before. She understood that safety wasn't a given. It had to be guarded, preserved, sometimes fought for. And it started with one person noticing, caring, acting. As the sun warmed the yard and the children's laughter filled the air, Meghan felt a sense of peace. Not the kind that comes from forgetting trauma, but the kind born from knowing that you've faced it, and changed something because of it. She wasn't a superhero. She was something more enduring. Someone who showed up, stayed alert, and did the right thing when it mattered most. And that, she now knew, could change everything.